The clippers bit into her scalp like teeth. They thought humiliation would silence her. They were wrong. 3 orderlies pinned Lieutenant Colonel Rebecca Matthews to the restraint chair as her auburn hair fell in clumps onto the psychiatric ward floor. The head nurse, Patricia, watched with cold satisfaction, seeing only a difficult patient, not the decorated officer who'd commanded soldiers across war zones. Rebecca's hands trembled against the metal armrests, not from fear, but from rage, the kind that burns when you've saved lives in combat only to be treated like nothing in a place meant to heal. Before I reveal what happened in the next 60 seconds, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because what's about to unfold will restore your faith in justice. Riverside Recovery Center had held Rebecca for 3 weeks. Her crime, reporting a powerful contractor's corruption after returning from deployment. Someone had drugged her coffee at a veterans event, and suddenly she was labeled unstable. Her phone was confiscated. Her sister Amanda, who drove 4 hours twice weekly, was turned away. The facility director, Dr. Webb, had connections to that same contractor. Convenient, wasn't it? Rebecca had shown them her military ID, her commendations, her discharge papers. But institutions that profit from silence are experts at ignoring truth. So she sat in that chair, eyes closed, remembering Kandahar, remembering the 17 hostages she'd rescued, remembering the 3 schools her unit rebuilt. She was more than this moment. Then the buzzing stopped. Patricia's face drained of color, staring past Rebecca toward the hallway. The orderlies released her arms and stepped back, their boredom transforming into panic. Heavy boots echoed down the corridor, not soft hospital shoes but military stride. Professional voices filled the air with clipped authority. Through the doorway walked a man in full dress uniform, 3 stars gleaming on his shoulders. Behind him, 2 captains, a major, for MPs with granite expressions. But the woman who entered last made Rebecca's breath catch. General Victoria Hayes, Rebecca's mentor from officer training, the woman who'd stood beside her at her father's funeral, who'd changed her career with a single recommendation. Her hair was silver now, but her eyes still held that piercing intelligence that cut through lies like laser through fog. The general's gaze swept the room, the restraint chair, the clippers, Rebecca's butchered scalp, hair scattered like crime. Scene evidence. When she spoke, her voice was quiet thunder. Release her, now. Dr. Webb appeared, his face shifting into practiced concern. General, there's been a misunderstanding. This patient, Lieutenant Colonel Rebecca Matthews, Hayes interrupted, each word a blade, is not your patient. She is an officer who's been unlawfully detained, stripped of rights, and subjected to degrading treatment violating military code and human dignity. General Robert Williams stepped forward with a thick folder. We have her service record, witness statements, security footage showing her drink being tampered with, communications between this facility and Dalton Security, contractors suggesting coordinated admission. He turned to Webb with an expression that could freeze fire. What we don't have is legal justification for what you've done to this decorated officer. Silence swallowed the room. Other patients called from the hallway. Nurses whispered urgently. Patricia's clipboard rattled in her shaking hands. Hayes moved to Rebecca with unexpected gentleness, touching what remained of her hair with tenderness that cracked something open in Rebecca's chest. I'm sorry we didn't find you sooner. Your sister contacted military advocacy. They kept moving your location, filing false reports. But you know what they forgot? Her smile turned fierce. People who serve together don't abandon each other. When one of us goes missing, we tear down mountains to bring them home. Rebecca's unused voice came out raw. They wanted me quiet. I know. Hayes nodded to the MPs, who began photographing everything, their cameras clicking like a countdown to justice. But they forgot who you are. You don't break, Rebecca. You bend, adapt, survive, then come back stronger. Captains escorted Webb and Patricia toward the hallway, reading rights in flat official tones that meant consequences were no longer theoretical. The major coordinated with legal teams. The machinery of accountability moved with relentless momentum. But at the center stood this human moment. Hayes wrapping a blanket around Rebecca's shoulders, helping her stand on legs weakened by 3 weeks of forced medication. Other patients emerged from their rooms, drawn by commotion. An elderly veteran in room 107 began to salute. Hand trembling but steady, another patient joined him, then another. A dozen people offering recognition to someone they'd been told was broken. Rebecca straightened her spine, muscle memory overriding everything. She returned the salute, every battlefield, every decision, every moment of service compressed into that single gesture. They hadn't broken her. They'd only reminded her what she was made of. As they walked toward the exit, Williams was already calling the state licensing board. Captains interviewed staff, whose expressions ranged from shock to barely concealed guilt. MPS secured Webb's office, seizing documents and computers. Outside, 3 news vans pulled into the parking lot, satellite dishes rising like flags announcing silence was over. Amanda waited by the entrance, face streaked with tears, when she saw Rebecca. She ran, wrapping her arms around her sister with fierceness that said, "I never stop fighting." Behind them, Hayes stood with her hand on Rebecca's shoulder, a bridge between hell endured and justice arriving. The investigation would take months. Webb would lose his license and face criminal charges. Patricia and 2 orderlies would be terminated. Dalton's security would face federal scrutiny, unraveling their corruption network. But that was ahead. In this moment, Rebecca just breathed. Cool evening air tasting like freedom. The presence of people who refused to forget her. Truth surfacing despite every attempt to drown it. Because rank isn't just stars on shoulders. It's recognizing that every person carries dignity no one can strip away. Sometimes justice arrives in full uniform and reminds everyone that truth always outranks lies. They thought breaking her would be easy. They forgot some people are forged in fires that make institutional cruelty look like candlelight. If this story reminded you that courage has allies, smash that like button and subscribe. There are more stories of people who refused silence, and they deserve to be heard. Comment below, have you witnessed someone stand up when others stayed quiet? I read everyone. Until next time, remember dignity isn't given by others. It's carried within, unbreakable and true.